When I was in college, I honestly had no idea where I'd end up in life. I was struggling in school, didn't land amazing internships like my friends, and I honestly just wasn't able to get a job. But I was able to turn my life around almost entirely and make $350,000 in tech today. See, at the time, if you had told me I was going to be one of the youngest senior product managers at Amazon, I would have never believed you. I'm not like some top 1% engineer who was just great at school and was able to land all of the jobs. In fact, I really barely even got a job at all. See, a lot of people land jobs from college based off of their actual degree, but unlike most people, I got a job by leaning into a lot of my extracurricular experiences and throwing parties in school, which isn't like most people. If you're in the other 99% of college students who isn't just some top 1% engineer, then maybe this advice can help you too. So for a little bit of background, I went to the University of Michigan where I studied material science engineering, which is a really niche field, and I originally had the goal of creating sports equipment for Nike with my engineering degree. As I went through school, I ended up joining a fraternity and was involved in a bunch of different leadership positions like the NAACP, fashion shows on campus, and even more. My fraternity is a pretty big professional services organization, and so they really encourage you to be active on campus. And so what I was doing is, on top of being in a bunch of different clubs, I also had a pretty good social life as well, which ended up meaning that I had pretty little time to study. Honestly, I didn't end up doing the hottest because of this, and I had a ton of leadership experiences that kind of spread my time thin. But interestingly enough, all that extracurricular experience on the side is actually what helped me to get to my senior leadership position today. And here's why I think that leaning into extracurriculars and even throwing parties can really help you too. See, when you're working at a big company, some of the biggest skills you can have are really good time management, financial management, and being able to work with other people to be able to get an objective done. Essentially, that's all that the field of project management actually is. See, my fraternity was a little bit different. Not only did we actually throw a bunch of parties, we did pretty extensive community service events, such as a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, a scholarship ball, and even more. On top of this, even the parties we threw were pretty elaborate, and we held ourselves to a high standard for how we planned them. It wasn't just throwing a party, really elaborate media rollouts for how we planned flyers, how we created materials, we got people involved, and how we interacted with the other people on campus. And so all of that created a really good brand image for us to be able to bring people and attract them to our events. See, in the moment, we thought we were just doing things that any sort of college student would do, but the reality is the level of detail that we added to it and the high standard we held ourselves to actually made it something that gave us transferable job skills as well. See, when you're in college or when you're in your early career, one of the biggest skills I tell people is to practice the skills that you want for your future job in the environment that you're in now. What this means is that by planning events of this nature, you could actually walk away with some pretty good project management or planning experience. The job market's pretty tough, and so if you're in college right now and you're struggling to land an internship, maybe you can lean into a different route. Maybe you try holding you and your friends to a high standard for planning social events or club events, and you put a really high level of detail into how you do them. Think of every detail. Think of who's going to be there. Think of who's going to greet the guests. Think of what type of drinks or events you're going to have. Think of who is going to plan the flyers, when you're going to put them out, what time you're going to do it, what day you're going to do it, how frequently you're going to remind people, and everything in between. Really thinking of all these details will give you that niche project management experience that really transfers over to the workplace. I'm probably in the minority of this, but honestly, I feel like a lot of my extracurricular experiences actually helped my career more than my actual degree. And so the thing is, these skills helped me land not only my first role, but also some future promotions along the way as well. In addition, all of this sort of marketing and sales practice enabled me to work really well with other people and be able to convince them of my ideas. When you're trying to get people to come to an event or trying to convince people to join sort of a club with you, there's a certain sort of way you have to be able to speak to them that actually is convincing. Speaking in this manner has helped me not only manage my career, but also work with my direct reports and my employees as well. See, funny enough, this actually didn't even end after I left college. Even though I'm in a full-time product management role, I still practice my skills by planning trips with my friends. As a matter of fact, I'm actually planning a bachelor party for me and a group of 19 people for a friend's bachelor party in just a few months. See, being able to organize events and plan trips of this size actually takes a lot of skill if you do it the right way. There's always the basics of planning your transportation and lodging, but getting all the real details down is where things come to shine. For the bachelor party like this, I knew there was a ton of people who I'd have to ask for money for things like the Airbnb, the events we do there, the flights, etc. And so in order to be able to get all those people on board, I had to make sure I generated some hype around the event before I started doing that. So when we created that first initial chat, I went to my friends on the side who were the groomsmen and I said, hey, let's just talk up the event for a couple of days. Let's make sure we get people excited. Then we'll sort of pick things one by one and enable people to pay on a schedule over time. When it came time to pick the Airbnb, we actually looked at a bunch of different options, but I did that with the groomsmen. I did it with a much smaller group. I realized that most people are honestly just along for the ride, and so they didn't want to look through 20 different Airbnb options, where they'd rather just get the one that they think is exciting, and for me to tell them how much I should pay. So like I said, I worked with that small group of people on the side, sorted through all the Airbnb options, picked the best one for the group of 19 people. The next level of detail for planning a trip like this is actually taking into consideration all of the events that people want to do throughout the weekend. I had to think of all the small details, like when people get hungry, when they'd want to actually go out and do things with other people, when they'd want to see concerts, etc. So you create a really good flow for that weekend overall. This may seem like extraneous advice, but the reality is that thinking of the user's end-to-end experience is also how people make projects in big companies. You want to think of how either your product or service is received from end to end, so really putting yourself in the other person's shoes and thinking of the experience throughout the whole duration gives you a really good insight as to how you should plan things. And honestly, as we go throughout these processes, my friends are amazed at the level of detail I have when it comes to planning and the amount of foresight I have for those small details that people would just never think about. But the reality is it comes with years of practice of planning things from college, but also planning things in the workplace as well, because the two skills do really go hand in hand. And like I said, you'd be surprised how many of these skills really find their way to the workforce as well. If you're able to lead a big trip like this, you'll likely be able to lead a big team project at work as well. It's all about putting the right information in front of people and getting them to do their best work. Sometimes that comes with managing personalities, understanding how people work together, and really getting them to do the thing that they're best at. That way, everybody contributes what they're able to without anybody feeling left out. Having a very detail-oriented view of planning also enables me to sort of look around corners at work. If I have a very long project that I'm planning out, I'm able to look at pitfalls ahead of time and really look around corners to see what things I should look out for. Again, whether that's big details, small details, I've just planned so many different things over the course of time that I know really what to look out for. Whether that's a major project blocker or even something as like a stakeholder dependency where I'll have to work with somebody at a certain point in the project where I know there will be some degree of an interaction that I need to manage. That way I can really think of the whole end-to-end thing, bring people in at the right time, and manage the overall project workflow. And honestly, these skills are even more important as you go up the ladder. You might think this is stuff that's just relevant for college kids and that those skills won't be useful, but the reality is once you get into a leadership role, it honestly becomes all about managing personalities and delegating work. A lot of people actually plateau in their career, especially people in technical roles, once they get to this point, because even though they have a really good amount of technical skill, they don't know how to work with other people, or they don't know how to get the best out of other people. If you give yourself a really good foundation of building these skills when you're in college, you'll be able to grow your career over time because you'll naturally just have developed that skill. And I want to be candid, it is a really tough time in the job market right now. It was when I graduated too. I was in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. A lot of job offers were getting rescinded, and so I know the feeling. It can be rough. It's a really nerve-wracking experience if your resume is empty or you don't have the experiences you want, but I want you to rest assured that there are other ways to get that experience. If you're not getting hired by companies, the best thing you could probably do is to lean into those social experiences and club experiences you have and make sure you're getting every ounce of value you can out of them. If you're in college, the best piece of advice I can give you is that time is on your side. And so you want to use whatever environment you have right now to make the best of your future. You can do it, and I believe in you. If you want to learn more about building great products, whether you're a college student, a founder, or a product manager, click the link to the founder community I have down below and say subscribe for more videos.